Hi there. So a while back we got word of a new update headed to Roku devices. Roku OS version 9.4 promised some nifty new features and potential performance enhancements, but we weren't sure exactly when it would arrive, outside of a timeline of the coming weeks. Well, it looks like for some users at least that particular week has come, and we've been checking out version 9.4 on a few of our in-house Roku devices to see what's what. If you're curious what this latest update has to offer, well, you've picked the right video. These are 5 things you should know about Roku OS 9.4. Number 1. When is it rolling out and how can I get it? Okay, we've had this problem before, but that's technically 2 things. That's okay though. First off, Roku OS 9.4 is in the process of rolling out right now actually. So the easiest way to check if your device is eligible for the download is to head over to the settings menu, scroll over to System, and select System Update. Click on the Check for Updates option to manually check for version 9.4. If it's available, it should start downloading and installing all on its own. You'll likely see your device restart and then you'll be brought back to the home screen like normal. Number 2. Who gets what? In other words, which devices are getting which new features. So yeah, Roku OS 9.4 does bring with it some interesting new features and updates, but some of those will depend on what kind of Roku device you're using. And in case you weren't aware, Roku's been making more than just dedicated streaming devices for some time now, so we also have smart TVs and a line of audio products to consider as well. With that in mind, Roku is promising improved performance across devices, including faster startup times, load times for top channels, and more. And their various streaming devices and smart TVs will also get access to updated theme packs to help spice things up a bit and add a bit more variety to your menus and home screens. Those theme packs popped up in version 9.3, but this update adds some sound effects to enhance each of them. If you're curious what those sound like, here's a quick preview of a few options. You'll also see hints pop up from time to time, reminding you of features like voice commands you could be using with your device. The idea here is to give users a heads up about controls they may not be aware of, especially ones like voice input that could be easier and faster than using, say, buttons to input long strings of text. Speaking of, well, voice, OS 9.4 introduces a feature that's currently marked as beta and not quite ready for prime time. This feature adds voice entry for certain on-screen keyboards. So a lot of apps display an on-screen keyboard for text entry for things like search or login details or inputting your email address. Well, this new feature allows users to input that info via voice. So if a given app's keyboard supports the new feature, you'll see a microphone icon displayed. At that point, you should be able to hold down your remote's microphone button to speak your command. But again, Roku labels this as a beta feature in its release notes and says it's currently only available for a small number of on-screen keyboards, but it's looking to add more in the future. Beyond all that though, version 9.4 also adds a couple features for its specific device categories. First, Roku TV users, you'll get access to the Roku channel's live TV guide straight from the home screen. You can select the live TV tile from your home screen to gain access to some 115 or so free live channels via the Roku channel. And Roku TV users that are leveraging antennas for over-the-air content will also get access to a combined guide that mixes both free OTA content and free streaming options into one guide. That said, you'll also have the option of filtering the guide if, say, you'd rather just see OTA-only content in the guide. Now, if that sounds familiar, it might be because we've reported on Roku experimenting with various types of this feature earlier this year, but it's coming to Roku TV users via OS 9.4. Elsewhere, if you're rocking a multi-channel Roku audio setup, OS 9.4 gives you more fine-grained control, including the ability to adjust rear surround speaker volume to mix better with the company's soundbar, according to your personal taste. Number 3. What about performance improvements? Well, Roku said we can expect performance improvements, so you better believe we tested those claims. Now, if you've watched any of our recent hardware videos, you may have come across our App Suite test. That's where we time each device to see how quickly it can load a series of popular apps in succession. And we test each device at least 3 times through the entire collection of apps to get an average time, and then we compare that against devices that have also been put through the same test course. Now, back when we did our Roku versus Roku test, our App Suite included a handful of Roku-specific services, including the Roku channel and the Tips and Tricks app. And for consistency's sake, we've included those 2 in this round of testing as well. And so for this video, our testing consists of Netflix, YouTube, Prime Video, Disney+, Hulu, ESPN, Pluto TV, the Roku channel, and the Roku Tips and Tricks channel. And then we load up Netflix one more time at the end to see if the app can get up and running any faster the second time through. And what did we find? Well, first, here are the times we got when we tested the 2020 Roku Ultra on version 9.3 a few weeks back. It scored the fastest time yet among our Roku devices with an overall average of 66.63 seconds. And now that we've loaded OS 9.4 on the new Ultra, have things improved? Well, yes, actually. Here are the results with version 9.4 installed, and you'll see the overall average is now an even faster 63.59 seconds. So yeah, Roku's fastest streaming device gets a wee bit faster with version 9.4. But what about older, less powerful options in the company's lineup? Well, we also tested the Roku Express back in our original head-to-head video, where it posted an overall time of 123.07 seconds to finish our course. In other words, about half as fast as the 2020 Roku Ultra. But does upgrading to OS 9.4 make a difference? Well, see for yourself. Now, we should point out that the Roku Express seemed to juggle apps in and out of memory more often than higher-end devices, but even with that additional loading time factored in, the Express clocked in an impressive 101.61 seconds, a significant improvement over its earlier times. So yeah, it looks like the company wasn't fibbing. Roku OS 9.4 should indeed offer performance improvements when it comes to app launch times. Nicely done. Number 4. What's all this about AirPlay 2 and HomeKit support? Okay, alongside the announcement of version 9.4, Roku also mentioned support for Apple AirPlay 2 and HomeKit on certain 4K Roku devices. For those unfamiliar, AirPlay 2 allows users to stream and share content on their Roku devices straight from their iPad, iPhone, and other Apple gear. Meanwhile, HomeKit support lets you control your Roku device via Apple's Home app on iPhones, iPads, and Macs. And here's a list of devices that are compatible with AirPlay 2, and you'll see a mix of Roku TVs, audio gear, and dedicated streaming players. To set up AirPlay 2 and HomeKit, you'll first need to make sure you have OS 9.4 installed, and then you should see an option in the settings menu for Apple AirPlay and HomeKit. From there, you can customize settings like if you want to require a passcode for connected devices and how subtitles should appear. On the device side, you should see the AirPlay icon on compatible media. Clicking on that icon should bring up supported devices, including your Roku gear. Just select it and you should be off to the races. And yes, in case you're wondering, that does in fact mean you can play content on your Roku device that may not be available directly via native apps. And that includes services like, HBO Max. We tested it on one of our Roku Ultras, and it was easy to fire up the HBO Max app on our iPhone and have that content displayed on our TV. It's not quite as convenient as a native app, of course, but if you've been looking for workarounds until Warner Media and Roku get along, this is among the easier routes. Meanwhile, here's a quick overview of what you can do via HomeKit, and it does depend on what kind of Roku device you're using. As you can see, you can turn on and control various aspects of supported Roku TVs, and other devices allow for basic remote control inputs as well. Number 5. What about supported devices? Good question. So here is the list of devices slated to receive version 9.4. And you can pick through the list of streaming players to see if yours is included. But the company also expects version 9.4 to come to all models of Roku TV. And by the way, if you're curious which model you currently have, you can head to the settings menu and then select System and About to see info about your model number and more. And you should also see the specific model number listed somewhere on the device itself, like say on the bottom on a label. And so there you go, those were 5 things you should know about Roku OS version 9.4. If your device hasn't received the update just yet, I'd first ensure your device is on the list we showed in the previous section, and if it is, be sure to do a manual search for the update in the settings menu. And if you're already rocking version 9.4, what do you think so far? Have you tried out the updated themes or the new voice entry options? Have you noticed any apps loading any quicker? Feel free to share your experiences with us in the comment section down below. For now, though, thank you all for tuning in today. And hey, if this is your first time visiting the channel, well, welcome. We'd love it if you clicked on those like and subscribe buttons down below. You'd be joining a fun and vibrant community. On Wednesdays, Jess hosts a live Q&A session with our viewers and subscribers. And then on Thursdays, we dive deep into a specific topic like, say, software updates or hardware reviews. And then make sure to check back with us on Fridays when we wrap up the week in cord cutting and streaming news with Cord Cutting Weekly. Until then, thanks again for checking us out. My name's Philip Palermo. I'll see you next time. Take care.